G'day and thanks for joining me again today. It's Corey with Brannon Construction, and today we're going to show you guys how to case a door. The first thing we're going to do is mark the reveals so that we have nice straight lines in relation to where our casing is installed beside the inside edge of the jamb. So we use this sliding square to do that. We set it to about 3/16 of an inch so you can see it slides. We'll set it to 3/16 there. Lock it down. And then what we do is we just put it on the corners. That's not quite far enough, so you may need to adjust. And that just gives you that consistent mark to install your casing to. Okay, that's good. So now for the casing and install there. Here we're going to be putting carpet in the main area, or throughout this basement, rec room, bedroom. The only other place we're going to have something different here is in the bathroom. However, carpet will finish out with the 8-pound underlay at about 1/2 inch thick. So I've cut some blocks that we can just set on the floor, and that'll help us with our measuring and make it a lot easier. Simply just put the block on the floor, bunch your tape into it, and then you can read your measurement there as per the line that you made with your sliding square. So that's 80, and I'm gonna say about 13/16. I write it on the wall. Measure both sides at one time. 80 and 5/8. And that's a left and then a right. Then we'll head to our saw. Mark 80 and 5/8 on this inside edge. And then what you want to do is you want to mark a nice big mark on the inside edge there at 80 and 5/8. Or whatever your desired measurement is that you come up with. Change your saw to 45 degrees. So now at the saw, there's a few things I want to show you. We have a sliding compound miter saw here. It's a smaller one, 7 1/4. Works great for narrower moldings, like 3-inch wide, 4-inch. This saw does the trick. But above and beyond just being able to set the miter to 45 degrees, we can adjust the bevel. Especially with this flat stock, but really any casing. If you bevel leaving the long point on the outside edge, meaning that if you could imagine beveling this direction, as well as cutting that miter, what it does is if you cut both your header and your leg piece of casing with that little bevel of about a couple degrees on it, it'll make for a really nice tight miter. So I get in the habit of doing that on every cut, adjusting that bevel in the appropriate direction, leaving that longer point, of course, out on this edge. And what it does is it makes for pretty much a perfect miter. So now that we have our jamb legs cut, and I've actually got this one already installed and nailed on, I just want to give you a little bit of a tip here with nailing the casing on. So that reveal is marked. We showed you how to do that earlier. So we really are only nailing the edge of this molding onto this jamb. We only really cover, about a 1/2 inch. So we do have to be cautious even when driving the 18 gauge brad nails, here where you can switch to 1.25 inch, that we have the nailer on the appropriate angle. I like to tilt it just to the back side of the jamb slightly, keeping in mind you still want that nail to catch, but you need to ensure there that you're not going to end up with what we call a bunch of blowouts, which is where that nail flies out the side of your jamb. It's not an effective means of fastening the casing, but also it becomes a bit more of a mess to patch and sand to prep for paint. Lastly with that, we want to make sure we nail about every 12 inches and that we put a slight bead of glue on the inside edge of the casing. We want to make sure too that glue is cleaned off. If it happens to ooze out at all, we just want to take the edge of our utility knife and you just literally have to swipe like that, wipe it off on a piece of shop towel. But the glue tends to dry quite hard, and if you have to chisel it off, you can start peeling at other parts of your jamb or molding there. So with the 2-inch 18 gauge brad nails now, we want to put 2 to 3 nails, leaving and excluding about the top 2 feet for now, because that could interfere with fitting our miters on our header piece of casing. But just nail through the outside edge of the casing so that the casing is forced tight to the drywall on this back bend here. So now onto the header. Once you have both your jamb leg pieces of casing nailed on, we're just going to measure from the left side here to the right side. We have 32 and 11/16. I always like to cut the piece of casing about a 1/16 to an 1/8 too long, and I'll show you why. So back to the saw. So now at the saw, cutting your header piece of casing. So you can make the first cut and just go ahead and do that. Ensuring that your miter and bevel are set, like we discussed before. After you've got that first cut made, the real trick that I'm going to show you here is how to precisely make your mark on your piece of casing so that when you go to fit it, you're quite close. And this is important because you don't want to cut it too short, but also to be efficient, you don't want to be cutting it several times. So you're going to hold your tape like this with your index finger and your thumb locked in the bottom corner of that miter, and that gives you the ability, and you do need to get a feel for it, but to hold it right where it needs to be. And then you can just take your nice sharp pencil, reach over, and mark that side of your tape. Another way to do this is to put that short point in the miter and position it on the saw base. So you can just hook your tape on there and move it. That gives you the ability to hold one side while you can mark the other precisely. Now that we've got that mark, we're going to switch the saw around the other 45-degree angle. Adjust the bevel to the other side a couple degrees. We're going to make that cut. When we make that cut, if you're not confident in your saw or your mark, what you can do is cut it slightly long. Let the saw come up after your first cut and just scoot it over slightly and try again. The whole idea here is when you scoot that piece over that you're not pushing it like an 8, you're just slowly easing it in so that the next cut you can be confident is right on your mark and where it needs to be. As you get a little bit more experience with this, of course, it's not going to be necessary to do that, but that's a trick to make sure when you're making precise cuts or adjustments to the cuts the second time around that you're confident that you're not going to hack too much off. So now to check out the result of our first cut. So what I want to show you here is how I in fact cut it a bit long, okay? And why I do that is just to make sure that the miters are gonna fit correctly. So leaving an even space on either side off the jamb, we can tell how our miters are gonna fit before that piece is in fact cut to the exact length. So we can see here how our miters are gonna fit and that they're quite tight. If anything, we're a little open there. So we'll make an arc on there just to show that we need to take some off this long point of that miter. To mark total length, if we're confident that we have it fit, we fit our left-hand side over here, pushing the casing exactly into position. And then on this side, we just drop it a little low. And we're gonna get our eyes in line, square with the edge of this other jamb leg, and we can make a little mark there. And that's how we're gonna be able to fit both our miters before our final cut to ensure that we have room for adjustment if needed, but also so that we're not cutting 2 or 3 different pieces before we get one that actually fits, so that we're using our material in an orderly fashion. So now back to the saw for what we hope is our final cut. We've got our bevel adjusted. We're gonna keep that the same because in fact it wasn't opened. But what we did find is that we need to cut a little bit off the long point. So we'll just take and adjust the miter out about 1/2 degree, I usually start with. So we're taking a little bit off that long point and we'll make our next cut. You can continue to do this process as much or as little as you need to fit your casing and your miters tight. So now for the glue. We discussed putting a bead on the jamb legs. I'll show you now how to do that with the header. Using your finger about, I don't know, 1/4 inch away from the tip of that works very, very well so you can get a consistent straight bead and you're not all over the place with it, because it's not so effective if it's not actually going to be in the position where this is suppressing against that outside edge of the jamb. Also, do your miters. Keep it near the back edge of the miters so that it doesn't ooze out too much on the front side. Wipe it clean. And again for the other side. We're ready to put this piece of casing on. Now with your 2-step into position or your ladder, keeping your brad nailer in one hand and the casing in the other, you can climb up a step. If you're short, like me, fit that in, making sure that these corners are perfectly aligned. Just wipe that glue off. Nailing about every 12 inches. Making sure the outside of the miter is flush. I prefer to go from the top with this nail because if you go through the side, it will show a line, especially if you're using MDF. Just a little bit of a split really is all it is. And there you have it. Now that this is all together, wait a few minutes and then you can nail the back band on these jamb legs with the 2-inch. Reason I don't like doing that before is of course because it'll get this piece of casing leaning too much, whereas if this joint is actually bonded and the glue's bonded, it's secured and nailed, we can then nail this and it doesn't really mess up our miters too much. So thank you for joining us again today. We appreciate you tagging along for the install on the casing. You can check us out by subscribing below. You can check us out on Facebook and at C. Brannon Construction and on our website at www.cbrannonconstruction.com. Stay in tuned till next time.